and welcome everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. I notice there are people really literally from around the world. I'm very, very excited about being here. I did used to work for Trinity a long time ago, so I'm very excited to be here presenting at the conference. I don't know if any of you actually attended the first breakout session. Attended the talk by Peter Bannister and Alexandra and Elena. They were talking about generative artificial intelligence as well. And it was such a wonderful talk. So if you haven't seen it, please watch it when we receive the link to the recordings. And it actually got me thinking about what I am about to talk about, because they gave a wonderful, brilliant, excellent background to the whole artificial intelligence being used in education situation that we are in at the moment. And I just wanted to say that what I realized is that, yes, it's moving, the presentation is moving. So change is the only constant in life. It's something that came to my mind when Alison got in touch with me about actually presenting today, because since I submitted my proposal back in March, so much has changed in terms of the generative artificial intelligence, using chatbots, using ChatGPT, which is the most common one at the moment. So when first Alison said, yes, we would like you to present, I started panicking, and then I redid my whole presentation. But what I would like to start with is that change really is the only constant in our lives. And the change that we've experienced in at the university and also in our lives with the chatbots being introduced into the lessons, into the whole education process. For me, it's been really educational as well. I love learning, I love teaching. And it made me think about, in the presentation, rather than going through a lot of theory and talking about the studies that have been completed, I would like to give you a more practical approach. So a little bit of theory, but that was really well covered by Peter and Alexandra and Elena first thing in the morning. So I would like to focus on the practical side of things, and I will talk about the cases that we've got here at the university of good practice, not so good practice, students using AI, teachers using AI, and basically the whole situation and what we can do to encourage students to use AI, but also to think about some of the pitfalls that AI might actually introduce to us. The reason I chose this picture is this is actually how I feel about the generative AI. It started back in March with the introduction of ChatGPT as a small, teeny, tiny group that started kind of, look, there's something going on. But actually, it is now a huge wild river. Things are happening all the time. Things are changing all the time. People are talking about it a lot. So this is just one of the pictures that evoked my feeling towards the generative AI and chatbots as such. So what I will talk about today, I will start with a little bit about the legislation and regulation for the use of AI in Czechia. So I'm from the Czech Republic, and what we do here and how it actually influences our lives and how it is regulated, how the use of AI is regulated in Czechia. I will also mention the good, the bad, and the ugly of AI, and it's all from my experience, and it is my take. So please don't take it as this is it. It's more from experience. This is how I see it. This is what we talk about with my colleagues. This is what we are preparing for with my colleagues as well, and students actually. I will then give you 3 cases, and that will be the majority or the most important part of my talk. The names are made up, but I will be talking about 2 students and one of my colleagues using AI And then I will talk about the takeaways from the cases. I will talk about what I learned from the cases and what I encourage others to learn from the cases as well, how we can actually use, make the most of the opportunities that are given to us. So starting with the legislation and regulation for the use of AI, and this is focusing on the Czech Republic at the moment. And the truth is there is no nationwide legislation or regulation. The use of ChatGPT and generative AI in general is so new that people are basically trying to get to grips with the whole concept and trying to get to grips with what it might mean for legislation and regulation. And this is very, very evident at university level. At the moment, I mean, universities in general, because a lot of the cases that have been introduced with ChatGPT and generative AI have happened or have come out of the academic sphere. There have been cases of academics actually using ChatGPT to generate ideas, but also to write parts of their work, which obviously is not okay. So the whole academic integrity has come into question in terms of using the AI, the generative AI, and what we can do about it. For us as academics at universities, working with people learning about the English, learning the English language and learning about English, about the linguistics and so on and so on, the main brunt of the work would be working with the students producing work, producing seminar work, producing essays, producing. So the use of ChatGPT and generative AI more generally actually means that we have to think about how much is actually created by the student, how much is created by the artificial intelligence, and how we work with it. So each university here in the Czech Republic actually approaches it in different ways, but not a single university doesn't use AI or refuses to acknowledge AI. So all the universities actually said, let's acknowledge the existence, let's acknowledge the potentials, let's acknowledge the pitfalls, and let's see how we can actually live with AI, so to speak. So each university came up with certain guidelines for students and for academics on using AI. At my university, the University of Pardubice, it's actually included in the development of staff, and we also produce materials for students with guidelines on what is plagiarism and what is or how is the use of AI connected with plagiarism. So to what extent they can make use of AI before actually something becomes a plagiarized piece of work. What we try to do, and I will talk about including the generative AI in our lessons, what we try to encourage students to do is to realize that there is something that is called ChatGPT, generative AI, Copilot, and so on. But to recognize that what we want to assess, what we want to see as their teachers is their own work. And I will give you an example of how one of my colleagues is actually using the AI generated text to improve the language, especially the written language of my students. One of the really good or pieces of good news here in the Czech Republic is that the universities have decided to actually pool their knowledge and pool their resources and try and come up with a code of practice for the general use in all the universities. which I find absolutely incredible. There is a huge pressure on academic work being published. There is a huge pressure on us academics to do a lot of research and so on and so on. So actually coming together as the academic community to create something that will guide us through the use of the artificial intelligence is so encouraging. It is something that I find incredibly encouraging and incredibly optimistic. And you will hopefully see the optimism throughout the talk, because I am optimistic about generative AI. So let me tell you about what I find is the good, the bad, and the ugly of the AI. The good thing, or one of the good things that I find, is that AI helps to save time when preparing lessons. Again, going back to Peter and Elena's and Alexandra's talk first thing in the morning, they introduced a number of applications that can be used to help with preparing lessons and generating lesson plans. So I'm not going to repeat everything that they said. It's really a really good talk. I'm so excited about, that was the first talk this morning, and so yeah, please watch it. It was brilliant. I'm only going to say that I personally used AI to generate certain materials for my lessons. So for example, if we are doing vocabulary, I might ask ChatGPT to generate 10 sentences with the examples of the use of certain words. And then ChatGPT generates something, I then adjust it for my students, and then I work with it. I don't have to come up with the sentences myself. I don't have to scour through books in the library and just look for the right sentence. I have ChatGPT generate some sentences. I choose the ones that are suitable for my students, and that really saves a lot of time when preparing my lessons. So that is the good. It saves time. ChatGPT saves time, or can save time. There's been a lot of talk about ChatGPT actually lying. And when I talk about one of the cases that we've had here at the university, you will see what repercussions that might have. Sometimes when I ask ChatGPT, I'm looking into this particular topic, and I want to read more about it. Can you give me some suggestions, websites, sources, publications? Can you tell me about it? ChatGPT just makes it up. I don't know why. I don't understand programming. But the writers, the authors, are always really good, like people who I know, good, reliable sources. But the actual publication is very often made up. And so trying to look for the sources can be a pain in the side. And we really want to be very careful, because ChatGPT can actually make up things. And when I ask, can you give me a link to this? You can find it on the internet. I can't find it on the internet. Can you give me the actual link? I don't have the link, right? So that is then the conversation that I have with the chatbot. When the chatbot wouldn't admit that it doesn't exist, it would simply say it's not possible to give you the link, right? So be very careful when using AI and when using the sources generated by AI, because the links, or sorry, the sources may actually not be what actually exists. So we need to be careful. Connected with that, and it's happened to me and a few of my colleagues as well, AI may occasionally develop an attitude. So when I kept pushing on, give me this the link, tell me where it is, tell me where I can find it, this publication doesn't exist, it actually can give me some snide comebacks. You are not searching well, is one of the mild ones. So again, this is the ugly of the AI, that we don't know where it takes the information, it's the internet, and we don't know what is behind what the AI is saying. So that is something that we need to be very aware about, where the information comes from and how we treat it and how we use AI. Okay, so that is the overview of what I find the good, the bad, and the ugly of the AI. And it is my experience, but it is the experience of some of my my teachers as well, and some of the students. So I would like to now go into a bit more detail of the cases that we've got here and illustrate why I think the good thing is to save time, the bad thing is it might lie, and some of the ugliness that we encountered. So Chris is a second-year student of the English for Education program, and part of the second-year students' teaching program is to teach a micro lesson on a given topic or on a given skill. Sorry. And Chris and the team actually created a lesson plan on reading comprehension. These micro-teaching sessions take 20 minutes. The teams teach their peers, so the students would be at a C1 level of English, and the students are asked to prepare a lesson plan to incorporate all the theory that they have had so far in their studies. So 3 semesters of pedagogy and teaching English as a foreign language. And Chris's team did a really good lesson. They had a really nice text. They had really careful questions. There were some comprehension questions. There were some multiple choice questions, and the whole lesson was really well done. So I asked Chris about the text. I said, this is really well done. This is really well included with the vocabulary that you wanted to include, really good phrases, really good logic within the structure. Where did it come from? And Chris blushed a little bit and said, well, actually, we have the text generated by AI. And I actually got quite excited, and I said, well, this is brilliant. Would you be able to send me the actual commands that you gave the AI to generate such a text? And Chris was very willing and sent me the materials and sent me the actual conversation with the chatbot. And the way that Chris and the team actually worked with the text was so thorough, so well thought out, that I used it several times in other lessons to show how to use AI. Because they first asked, you know, we want to use some idioms, we want to use these 5 idioms, please generate a text using those. So the chatbot generated the text. And the team said, well, actually, we think this particular idiom is not used correctly. Can you tell us about the use of this particular idiom? And then chatbot gave them the breakdown of what it means and how it's used and so on. And they actually put pressure on the chatbot as well, just like I did, and said, actually, Cambridge Dictionary says this and that. So are you sure you used it correctly in the text? And the chatbot got a bit defensive. But what the team actually did was they used the text and they amended it the way that they've been taught, the way that they thought was accurate, the way that they adjusted it for the level of the students, for the age of the students, and so on. And then they created the questions to go with the text. And that, in my book, is a really good, creative, efficient use of the chatbot, and actually making use of what we know, what the chatbot knows, wherever they take or it takes the information, and using it for creating the lesson plan. So it wasn't completely AI generated text, the first one that they received, the team received, but they actually amended the text and tailored it to the needs of their peers, of the students that they were teaching. So that was Chris. Jess is another second-year student. This time, Jess is a student of English for business purposes. In the second year, the students choose their topic of their bachelor thesis, and they actually submit a proposal to their potential supervisor. Jess is not the most well-trained in timekeeping, let's say. So Jess has a tendency to be late for lessons, to be late submitting. But the work is usually okay. So at least that's working for Jess. This time, Jess actually submitted the proposal for the bachelor thesis to the potential supervisor 3 days after the deadline. But the supervisor said, well, I will read through it. Okay, I will give you the benefit of the doubt and I will read through it. And the proposal was to do with literature, with English literature. And my colleague said, well, I was looking at the proposal and I was looking at the suggested sources, because the student have to suggest at least 5 publications as sources for the topic. And my colleague said, I was looking through that and I realized I knew the authors, but I'd never heard about the books that were supposed to be the sources for the work. And so my colleague contacted Jess, and Jess said, oh, yeah, these are the books that I am using, you know, this is how I created the proposal. And so my colleague said, could you please send me the books, or could you bring them in for a consultation so that we can talk about it? And that is actually when Jess confessed that the proposal, including the list of literature, is ChatGPT generated, and that actually Jess had nothing to do with the proposal. Now, the outcome of that goes back to what I said a few moments before, a few moments ago, which is there is no legislation or regulation at the moment. So the guidelines that we've got here at the university level are, if students use AI to generate their work, there is a certain percentage, there is up to 15% that we would allow, as if you rephrase it, if you paraphrase what you've been given and you give us the source material and you give us your paraphrase, we are willing to accept it. If it's more than 15%, and especially if no paraphrase has been used, if you just copy and paste, then it's seen as plagiarism, and you are not allowed. There's repercussions that come with that, and it's treated as plagiarism. So what we did with Jess was none of my colleagues, nobody in the department actually accepted the proposal, even though Jess suggested writing a new proposal, writing it on their own, you know, like I will do it myself. We basically said, we're not accepting it in this round of submissions. You need to come up with something new. You need to write it yourself, and you can submit your proposal in the next round, which is going to be in August. So this is something that actually alerted us to the students using AI in a way that we would never think of. And this is something that many teachers talk about. We as teachers do not have the mindset of the students. We do not work with the technologies as in a way or in the same way that students do, and that is something that we need to think about. So this is basically what happened with Jess, and we learn from that to be more careful and to actually learn from students. We ask students more about what they are doing. Now I'm going to talk about my colleague actually using ChatGPT. And Dr. Doe, again, not my colleague's real name, developed what I think is a really good example of not putting our head in the sand in terms of, ChatGPT doesn't exist. What my colleague is doing with her students is at the beginning of the course, at the beginning of the semester, she says, okay, there is this thing called ChatGPT, let me show you. And what you can do with it is, and she gives them a few activities that they might do, that they might try, some commands that they can ask, questions that they may ask, and so on and so on. And then she says, choose a topic of an essay that you would like to write that will be a project for the whole semester. Choose a topic that is close to your heart, that you find interesting, that you think your peers will find interesting, and have the topic fed into ChatGPT, and have ChatGPT or other generative AI actually give you the essay in the length that you are supposed to have, and so on. So they've got about a week to think about, the students have about a week to think about the topic. Then they feed it into ChatGPT or AI, and then they receive an essay. And then they are asked, as they are learning about these are first-year students, as they are learning about the features of the essay, as they are learning about the language of the essays, or academic essays, and so on, they are then asked to use the ChatGPT generated essay and adjust it, rewrite it, paraphrase it, work with it to reflect what they've learned in terms of academic essay writing. So they've got another week or two to work with that. And in the meantime, they are learning about writing in English, academic writing, and so on and so on. And then they are actually asked to write their own essay. And by that time, they will have thought about the topic quite a lot. They will have researched the topic quite a lot. And so they would write the essay in the lesson because they already have enough knowledge, and they would write it in pen without the use of anything else. And the stroke of brilliance that I find is the fourth step of this process, when the students take the three essays, the three versions of the essays, and they compare the three versions, the AI generated, the hybrid AI human, and the human generated one. And they comment on which one is the most suitable for submission. Now, there is not enough. This was the first semester that my colleague has been working with this. So there's not enough evidence that we can conclude something very specific. Excuse me, very specific. But what seems to be the trend is students find that having the hybrid essay, so having some initial ideas generated by AI, but actually putting in their own ideas, is the best way to go. And that was the essay that they wanted to submit, and that they wanted marked at the end. So that I think is a very creative, useful, interesting use of AI, rather than pretending it doesn't exist and hope that students don't notice, because they will, and just working with what we have. So what I would like to be the takeaways from what I've been saying, and I hope we're okay with for time. This is the balance. It's the balance of what we have and how we could use AI. So the first takeaway I would like you to have is embrace the opportunity. The opportunity is here. AI can make our life easier. I refuse to believe that AI will replace teachers, because there will always need to be the human touch to studying. Actually, in the first, sorry, I keep going back to the first talk of the morning, but it was so inspirational. Peter was talking about the teacher as a filter. So you have something generated by the artificial intelligence, and you are the filter. You are the one who decides this is suitable for my students, or I need to adjust it, Or actually, this is the instance when AI is lying. I'm going to use it as an activity for my students to find the correct sources for this and that information. So we are needed, we are necessary. We will not lose our jobs because robots will not teach us. I started studying German, and I'm using Duolingo at the moment because I haven't found a teacher of German at the moment. And it's just not the same. I need the human touch. I'm not going to learn the language just by using an app. Okay, so embrace the opportunity. The second thing that I would like you to take away from this talk is beware the pitfalls. The ChatGPT or generative AI is not the be all and end all. It's not the answer to everything. We still need to think about what we are doing. And we still need to use our pedagogical knowledge, our psychology knowledge. We need to use the knowledge of our students. ChatGPT doesn't know my class. My class might be very specific. They might have very specific hobbies. For example, I have just taught a team or a group of 12 students, of which 8 are interested in Asian drama series. I'd never met anybody like that. And suddenly I had 8 people in there. And it was so interesting working with them, looking for topics of discussions and essays and so on and so on. So the ChatGPT doesn't know them. I was able to ask ChatGPT what are Asian dramas. What do they mean? What do my students mean? I got some information so that I can then talk to my students, but I got much more information from my students actually. So it's not the be all and end all. Let's not give up on our work, right? Okay, I think that's it from me. I can see that the chat has been going. I very deliberately stayed away from the chat. I left it to Alison because if I saw something, I would get derailed. So I'm going to leave it to Alison. Thank you so much for listening to me. If anybody feels like getting in touch with me, I would love to hear from you, because ChatGPT or generative AI is a topic that is being discussed a lot at the moment. And actually my colleague who was supposed to present with me today, but unfortunately couldn't, we are preparing a series of webinars, and we are preparing an article as well on that. So if you've got anything you want to tell us, please do. I would love to hear from you. Thank you.